I'm just going to sit back behind the stage or wherever I'm going to be off screen and listen and learn to Roxanne and her panel on criminal justice reform. I'm glad they're here, Roxanne. So I'm turning the show over to you. Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
All right.
Well, criminal justice is one of my passions, and I am so pleased to be able to host this panel. Uh, Criminal justice, if it does not affect you, 9 times out of 10, it has affected someone in your life, in your family, someone you know. So the more we can focus on criminal justice reform to try to make everything more equal for everyone, despite the fact of their zip code, the color of their skin, their education, their income level, everyone should have the same rights. Everyone should be treated fairly by the court. So with that, hopefully we're going to be bringing the panel on here. And these are some of my favorite people in the world. If everyone would unmute themselves. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Roxanne.
How are you? You guys know how much I love criminal justice reform.
Right, yes.
And so that's why I'm so pleased to be hosting this panel. So what I want to do is just kind of go around, let you introduce yourself, what you do, where you work, and included in that, tell me why you think it's important to vote. So David, let's go to you first.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Roxanne. Also, this has been a great event. I've been tuning in all day, and it's just amazing to see everybody focusing on voting today. I just love to hear it. But anyways, I'm David Gately. I'm the criminal justice policy analyst at the Oklahoma Policy Institute. So Roxanne is one of my colleagues. But, you know, I think voting, when we're talking about voting, to me, on a fundamental level, voting is really a practical and effective way to make change. So much of the time I find myself asking, like, what can I do to help on issues and causes that I care about for our state and also our country? And voting is usually a really good place to start. It's only one tool to use, or one piece of the puzzle, so to speak, but it's a really powerful one. It's not the end all be all or the sure-proof way of getting what we know we need for our communities, but it's at least one place to start. It's one action towards those goals. Also, I feel an obligation and a responsibility to show up for our communities, many of which have been historically denied the right to vote or the ability to vote, and so many still do today. And that includes justice-involved folks that we're going to be talking about today. So that's why I vote. And again, thanks for letting me be here and for everybody who's watching.
Thank you, David. Donna, why don't you go next?
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this panel. My name is Donna Thompson, and I am Prison Ministry Director for the Oklahoma Baptist State Convention and the Fairview Baptist Church. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to get information out about voting, because in Oklahoma, I noticed that our voting turnouts have been low. So I want to be able to help as many people as I can understand the importance of registering and exercising their rights to vote by being a part of this panel. For me, it is very important to register and vote, because I feel like you can't be a voice if you're not registered in voting. I don't think people should complain about outcomes if they aren't registered and voted. It's our right to register and vote. And so I'm hoping that people will understand it's not just the presidency that you should vote for. You have to vote for things right here in our own community. You know, our governor, our county commissioners, all of the people that are running for office have an agenda, and it's important that you register and vote, whether for or against those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna. And Damien.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation today. My name is Damian Shade, and I'm the executive director of an organization called Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform. We're one of the largest criminal justice reform organizations in the state of Oklahoma. And our purpose is to create a criminal legal system that works, that actually produces better justice outcomes and reduces the scale and scope of Oklahoma's vast and pretty insidious incarceration crisis. For those who don't know it, Oklahoma has led in the top three incarcerators on earth for the past for more than the past decade. We have one of the highest rates of black incarceration and female incarceration on the planet as well. And these high incarceration stats have not demonstrably made Oklahomans more safe. So we're spending money we don't have to produce outcomes we don't want. And the reason the criminal legal system is such an important pivot point to me is there's not a single part of public policy failure, be it healthcare, be it education, be it issues around children and families and workforce. There's not a single public policy problem that the criminal legal system and the issues with our criminal legal system isn't making worse. If you think of policy problems as a fire, in many cases, the criminal legal system is an accelerant to those problems. So for me, this issue is really about the moral conscience of our generation, about our values as Americans, and speaking really to that core value of why I vote. My voting choice is really personal. In the 1960s, my grandfather was attacked by a group involved with police, a group of white Alabamans who violently beat him when he was trying to go to vote at a time period when it was supposed to be legal for him to do so. My grandmother was afraid of going to vote for decades until Barack Obama was on the ballot, and several of my uncles went with her so that she could vote for the first time in decades for the first African American with a legitimate chance who became the first Black president. I vote for my grandma. I vote for my grandfather, for the people who look like me, who were denied access and power to their society on purpose for so long. I tend to think it would be disrespectful of the legacy that those folks have left me for me not to take some responsibility and accountability for my state, my community, and my nation. So that's why I vote.
That's beautiful, Damien.
Mhm.
Okay. One of the main issues I have around voting for people who have been involved in the justice system are the people who are being held in the county jails, in the city jails. They haven't been charged with anything. They have not had their day in court. But yet, they aren't allowed to vote. And it's not that it's against the law for them to vote. It's just that no one makes an effort to talk to them about voting. The election board send representatives to every nursing home there is, every veterans home there is. I would like to see them also add city jails, county jails to that list. And I don't know what do we have to do to make that become a reality?
I would like to respond to that. At the 2020 election, Councilwoman Nikki Nice and some of the staff at the county jail initiated a plan to register those who were in the Oklahoma County jail to have an opportunity to register and vote, and also to receive absentee ballots. We as community partners could not, of course, because it was COVID, could not go in to assist with this because the county jail was not allowing people inside. I'm not sure where we're at with that, but I know that there was an effort, some action that was taken in order to register those who were in the county jail. Unfortunately, I don't know where they're at with this this effort at this time, but I do know we were part of the process of trying to get those who were in the county jail to register and vote in the 2020 election. So I do want to say that somebody started it, and I'll look into where we're at with that. But I just wanted to say that piece.
Well, Donna, if you get any information on that, please let me know. I am in Ardmore, and Ardmore is kind of an animal unto itself. So yes, any help you can give me on that front would be greatly appreciated.
I think that it's still at the county jail. We're still not able to go inside. So it would still take the staff and whomever the county jail would allow to come in. But so I'm not sure, you know, the situation has been different since COVID. You know, there's been staff shortage. I won't say that that's the reason, but in order for us to be able to do this at the level that we would like and be most effective, I think that we as volunteers would probably have to assist with that. And so, because like I said, we still can't go into the county jail to actually do the voters registration drive. So they would have to do that. But I will follow up and I will let you know.
Okay. Yeah, and what we're wanting to focus on today with this panel is how the criminal justice system affects the rights of people to vote. The barriers that they might face, the ability to register, as we were talking about, those who have been incarcerated and come out of incarceration being told or believing they will never be able to vote again for the rest of their life. Those are kind of the things I want to talk about. I could take this panel in a completely different direction than some of the questions that we have planned here, but I won't do that because I've only got a certain amount of time.
Okay.
But what are some of the key issues that affect the people for whom you advocate? And you can just jump in.
Yeah, I can start on that one, Roxanne. I think so many of the key issues that are affecting all Oklahomans today are also issues that are affecting people who are justice involved. For example, most all of us care about the costs and access to health care, or keeping our schools funded and safe for our children, and also making sure we have safe communities. And that means also safety from police as well, and so much more. That said, I think for justice involved individuals, these very issues have even more barriers and concerns when you have a criminal record, for example, particularly a felony record. And you mentioned that with voting, that's just one of them. But justice involved folks are 10 times more likely to be unhoused. They're 5 times more likely to be unemployed in Oklahoma. It's harder to get an education or a professional certification. All of which then make it harder to keep food on the table and pay the bills or even find housing in the first place. And as Damien mentioned before, justice involvement takes things that might already be so challenging and it makes them even worse, exponentially worse. On the other hand, there are, I think, key issues that are unique to justice involved individuals, such as the burden of court fines and fees, or being under constant surveillance from the government through things like court-ordered supervision, like probation or parole. It also means the threat of being arrested and detained with an inability to pay a bail amount, which forces people deeper into the justice system and financial ruin. It also means being away from family and friends that are so important to our overall well-being. So these are key issues. And I think that, for example, when we see over-incarceration in our state, we're still, as Damien mentioned, those statistics, we're still one of the leading in incarceration. And that's incredibly distressing when you look at the statistics on who we incarcerate by race and ethnicity. So I think that those are some of the key issues. There's so many more. But I think when we're talking about justice involved folks, again, there's so many barriers to the issues that so many Oklahomans already face. I'll kick it to someone else from there.
So the big piece that I'd like to follow up on what David was saying is just that the racial dynamics of the disenfranchisement, of folks just losing their basic right to vote. Just to talk about pure national numbers, as of 2020, between 5.2 million and 6 million Americans were disenfranchised from the right to vote because of felony convictions. Those individuals are by and large disproportionately from Black and Brown communities. Black Americans of voting age, folks like me, are nearly 4 times as likely to lose their voting rights as the rest of the adult population. And 1 in every 16 Black adults is disenfranchised nationally. In some states, as of 2020, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, Wyoming, more than 1 in 7 Black adults is disenfranchised. In total, 1.8 million Black citizens are currently barred from voting in the United States. In 34 states, the Latinx community and those of Hispanic descent are also disenfranchised at a significantly higher rate than the general population. In Oklahoma, where 1 in 16 or 1 in 21 adult Black men, folks who look like me, are incarcerated, those felony convictions represent a class of people who cannot access citizenship. It would be difficult for someone looking at the legacy of deliberate racial disenfranchisement and deliberate separation from civil access to look at the current scheme of disenfranchising majority communities of color across the United States in larger populations than the populations of some state, right? Some states, 1.8 million Black people. That's a larger population than states like Idaho or Montana. So we have essentially states worth of Black people and states worth of disenfranchised felons across the United States who cannot access the most basic right that our society and our Constitution guarantees to every American. And of course, the context of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s codified for all of us. Those important pieces of law should matter, and they should matter for those who are incarcerated and those who have justice involvement just as much as they matter for the rest of the population in this nation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Donna?
You know, I think that part of my problem is the people not understanding that you can register and vote with a felony conviction and when you're able to. Like Damien and others always say, you know, they say different things about trying to help people. And I piggyback off of both for our speakers that are on this panel as well. But many people don't understand the process. I've been doing this for right at 20 years. Trying to get people to understand their rights to register and vote with a felony conviction in Oklahoma. And it has been really a challenge. The problem, the barrier is that most people think that once you get a felony conviction, you lose your right to register and vote forever. So the process is trying to go back and tear that down and re-educate people on their rights to register and vote. So we completed a formula. And, you know, when you talk about legislatures and other people of importance that are influential, they don't know you can register and vote with a felony conviction. So a lot of times these people who are running for office don't touch that population because they don't feel the significance because they're felons and they can't register and vote. which makes them seem like they're less than because they have a felony. But in Oklahoma, the process to determine when you're eligible to register and vote is everything starts at date of conviction. You take the date of conviction and you take the number of years you're sentenced to, and you add those two together, and that's your eligibility date. So I'm gonna give you an example. If you got convicted in 2000, I'll say 2006, and just a random number, and the judge gave you 7 years, you've been eligible to vote since 2013. 2006 plus 7, that's 2013. And so people, we give different examples so that people will understand it's whatever that person received. Senator Young and myself have done several videos trying to get that language out so people will understand how to calculate that. But as I said, you know, the information has been misinterpreted for so long, and people have given the wrong information that it's hard to do, but we're going to continue to do that. So we had a gentleman who got convicted in 1991, and this was in the 2020 election. He got convicted in 1991, and he received 4 years. So in 2020, he had not registered in 25 years because he didn't know. So he got convicted in 1991. He got 4 years. He's been eligible since 1995. So for all of these years until 2020, his understanding was that he would not be able to register and vote. And even with people with deferred sentences, that's not a conviction, so to speak. And so you never lose your rights to register and vote if you have a deferred sentence. It's just like being in the county jail. You're not being convicted when you're in the county jail, and the deferred sentence is not. The terminology is you're not convicted. But if you have a deferred sentence, you can register and vote. So people, even if they were registered voters, they stop because they think they can't vote anymore. And that's not true. So what we do when we go to the prison, we actually have a formula. And we go to the prison. We have the people in the prison turn the paper over. We don't even let them see the formula at first. And have everybody to write down, when did you get convicted? They write it down. And how many years did you get? And they write that down and they add it together. In prison, the terminology and the language is calendar days. So people understand. They know what 4 years calendar days is. That's all 4 years times 365. And let me just quickly say this. Another part of the problem for the population of people is the Department of Corrections and the State Election Board are two different agencies. So the language of completed sentence, somebody say, well, you know, you can register and vote once you complete your sentence. That's completion of sentence for the Department of Corrections is different from a completion of sentence for State Election Board. Let me tell you what I mean. If you are convicted to 10 years and you go to prison, you will accumulate time, credits, and things of that nature to decrease your amount of time incarcerated. So most people who may have done a 10-year sentence without any issues or problems will probably, I'm guessing the guys who could agree with me on that or correct me if I'm wrong, would do 5 years, 5.5, and then you're totally through. That's a completed sentence for the Department of Corrections. But you got 10 years. For the State Election Board, you receive a 10-year sentence. And so in order to register and vote, you have to do all 10 years calendar days before you're eligible to register and vote. So when you have people saying, when you get off probation, when you complete your sentence, that language needs to be clarified so that people will know. Department of Corrections, you will not spend 10 years in prison on a 10-year sentence because of the time you calculate. But if you get probation, you're going to do day for day because you won't be able to accumulate anything. I know they're working on some programs for that, but it's a conversation that some people cannot, determine whether they are or not, so they don't register, they don't vote, and they carry the same message. I can't register and vote because I'm a felon.
I agree with everything you said. And some of the happiest people I've ever seen in my life, a lot of times I will go door to door registering people just to see if they're registered, you know, and checking their status. And I don't know how many times I have gone to a door and asked someone if they were registered to vote, and they said, no, I cannot register to vote. I cannot vote.
If I could just say this, I encourage anybody doing voters registration. What we do, we have something on our table with a picture frame that says felons may be eligible to register and vote. Because if you don't prompt the question, they're not going to approach your table, because remember, they're thinking they can't register and vote. So we have that on our table when we're registering people. So, and even we look at how they react when they say, oh, I can't register, but whoa, come here. Let's talk about that, you know, and have them to come so that they will know. And in addition to that, I love people that are registering folks to vote. I my hat's off to them, but it's important that if you're registering people to vote, to stop telling them the same thing. You can't register and vote. I have several people who I walk up to and say, oh, you know, this is good. Can I vote if I'm a felon? No, you can't. You can't. So you understand what I'm saying? It's that continuous educating. And I appreciate all those people. But when you're registering people to vote in the state of Oklahoma, it is important that you know the process and the formula to register and vote people with felons.
Yeah, if you're going to register people to vote, you need to know the rules that apply to everyone who you might be registering.
Yes, ma'am.
And I love the fact that you put that on your tables, because like you said, a lot of people who have felonies may be of the belief that they cannot register to vote. And if you have that on your table, then they say, hey, won't hurt to check.
Oh yeah, they're like, what? I didn't know that. I really can. Those type of expressions that just make our day, you know, because we're able to, you know, let them know some things. So
that's true. Very true. Okay. I know we're going to be short on time because I keep getting off issue here. How are those issues, the issues that you advocate for, impacted by policymakers? And how could those issues be impacted by people who vote, if more people would vote?
I can start again. We can just go around, I guess. First off, I think on a logistical and like a legal point, Oklahoma's criminal legal system, so like prisons and jails, is overwhelmingly a state level issue. So the vast majority of people who are in prison in Oklahoma are there on state level convictions, meaning they were arrested by a county or a state police officer. They were held in a county jail or detention center. They were prosecuted by county level prosecutors. They're in front of district court judges that are elected. And then ultimately they're incarcerated in state run prisons. So that means that our voting power is even more important because these decisions are made largely at the local level. A concrete example of that is district attorney races, where prosecutors, the people who are prosecuting crimes, putting people in prison, they have a really outsized power in the criminal legal system and really do create policies that affect our communities. For example, in Tulsa County District Attorney, during the height of the pandemic, and they claim they're still doing this, they're not enforcing certain warrants for failure to pay court costs, for example. That wasn't a decision made by a legislature or by the president of the United States or the governor. It was made by an office of one elected law enforcement official. But I think beyond that, our legislative representatives, so the people who are at the Oklahoma State House and Senate, they also make policy for the entire state. They decide things like sentencing ranges. They decide what fines and fees are imposed on people. They decide the funding for our prisons, which includes things like job training and educational opportunities. So in fact, we know the power of advocacy on these policymakers in criminal legal system can be really powerful. Just this last session, we saw major advancements, particularly in economic justice and things like clean slate, which is automatic expungement, which passed this session, or occupational licensing reform, which makes Oklahoma one of actually the best places for justice involvement when it comes to licensing. And then also a huge elimination of fees that are assessed on children in the court system. So think about what more we can do when we vote for people who align, regardless of political party. I want to be clear. These measures I just mentioned were advanced by conservative members of the state legislature. It didn't just happen out of nowhere. We have a broad coalition of lawmakers and voters who care about these issues. So we should send them even more people who care about these issues next.
That's right.
Vote, vote, vote. I want to also say, last thing, not just on the local level, but our governor also has power in the criminal legal system, particularly when it comes to pardons and commutations, but also who makes up our pardon and parole board, which is really important. That has had a huge impact in the last few years, which created, for example, the single largest day commutation in U.S. history. So you have power, your vote has power at every level of the justice system in counties, rural counties, urban counties across the state.
And I think the only thing I would add to what David said, agree with everything that he just highlighted. It's just so important to recognize how in a state like Oklahoma, very local systems can have enormous statistical impact. So the Oklahoma County Jail, Oklahoma County's pretrial detention center, is the front door for Oklahoma's incarceration crisis. That county sends the largest percentage of county citizens to state prisons. That county sees some of the most robust racial disparities that we see in outcomes for arrest, detainment, fines and fees, and other important statistical metrics. And that county determines the rate at which large numbers of people, the population of our state prison system, whether that grows or whether that declines. There have been changes, significant changes to that county's justice system between the Criminal Justice Authority, reforms to the jail that's been in national and local news lately. All of those changes are incumbent on who the elected district attorney in Oklahoma County is. It's one of the most important positions that we can vote for, and whatever your ideological perspective, whether you're conservative, whether you're more progressive, there are people on the ballot who, for November in Oklahoma County, who have a very different vision from each other about what direction though that criminal legal system should go. And as Oklahoma County goes, so goes the state of Oklahoma, particularly when it comes to something like the criminal legal system. The last piece of that is be aware that on the state legislative level and on the governor's race, as David mentioned, I've heard lawmakers say that if 8 people call their offices about a legislative issue or a policy that they're concerned with, those lawmakers are shocked. Think about that. Your church groups, your community groups, you and 7 of your other friends could truly be pivotal to advocating for an issue and changing some policymaker's mind. You have so much power. So much more power than you may realize over the way Oklahoma works and the way our laws function.
That's so true. If people could just understand the power in their voice. You know, yes, you registered, yes, you voted. Now hold that legislator accountable. Whether you voted for them or not, they are still just sitting behind that desk that your tax dollars are paying for. They need to listen to what you have to say.
Exactly.
You know, so I mean that's why voting is so important.
Right.
And the last question we're going
Before
to
you
ask.
say the last question, Roxanne, let me throw this out. We have some extra time.
Oh,
So
okay.
uh, you ask that question, then, but I don't want our panelists to feel like they have to make short responses.
Oh, no,
I
no.
have a question I want to throw out too once Roxanne finishes. So thank you all very
I could hold this group of people here for from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and I'd be happy. So anyway, the last question that I have, that it's probably not my last question, but it's the last question on this list. What do you think is one major thing we can do to help more people register to vote and then vote?
I would like to say that I think educating the population of people, in addition to their family members, of the importance of registering to vote. But you know, when I'm always happy when I see someone who's made aware that they're able to register and vote. And I just want to just piggyback off the conversation about the biggest commutation in the state of Oklahoma. I think it might have been the U.S. I'm not sure, but it was a great thing. In that commutation, there was a question about the people who got their sentences commuted. So they asked me the question, why haven't, this is in the 2020 election again, why haven't those people who were released from prison registered to vote? Because many of them felonies were reduced to levels to where they've been out that long. And so in order for us to know exactly what we were talking about, Senator Young submitted the question to, at that time, Attorney General Mike Hunter, because we did not know how to tell people when they could register and vote whose sentence had been commuted, and we didn't want anyone to get in trouble for registering and vote too soon. It took us a while, but then Attorney General John O'Connor responded and gave it to us in writing. So if you had a 20-year sentence and they commuted you to a 10-year sentence, remember I said that the state election board requires you to wait the amount of time of the original sentence, which is 20 years in this situation. But they commuted the person's sentence to 10 years. And so we didn't know, well, does that mean they still have to do the 20, or is that mean they go down to 10? And so in his response, it states that the 10-year sentence is now the original sentence. So
Okay.
I brought that up because some people don't know it. Some that weren't even a part of that process of commutations, but just got commutated at a different time. But still, we still could not give them that information. So in order to help people understand and register and vote, that was a big piece for us, because we were able to reach out to a lot of those people who got out. You know, we don't know where everyone is, but we were able to provide them with that information. And I also think that it would be good if we were in a lot of different places to where people can hear information about the importance of registering and voting, not necessarily for or against a person, but what the vote is about. What the vote is about. The vote is about, and when you're talking about kids, even though it kind of goes without saying, it's the superintendent and raises for our teachers and things of that nature. I have conversations with people, oh, I ain't gonna vote for that. I'm not gonna do it now. So you have kids, you have grandkids.
Yeah.
You know, you are making a vote or not for their future. If you don't vote for you, what about your kids? So those type of conversations, sometimes you have to have, because it goes over so many people's head when it's not put in their face as to how this affects you. That's just kind of something.
Yeah, they don't realize that potentially every ballot that there is to vote on affects you in some way.
Right.
You know, it's I agree with you completely.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Damien.
Happy to jump in. So I think really the most important thing that we can do to boost voting participation in this country and in Oklahoma really is a culture shift. It's
Mm.
remarkable the amount of things that we do based on cultural inertia. So we consistently have these repeated things that we do over and over again because of the legacy of doing them. We haven't built a culture around registering to vote in this state or in this country. We haven't built a country about a culture of gathering groups of people in the community and going to the polls specifically, with the exception of some church groups that I know. And we need to build a robust culture of both of those things. I think community partners, of course, nonprofit and faith organizations, there really needs to be, in particular increments before important voting cycles, large scale efforts of the civil society groups and of regular Oklahomans putting out the call that now is the time to register to vote.
Mhm.
Here is the date that the election is. And most importantly, here are the things that will be decided in this election. And I don't mean in a partisan way. I mean in a very simple citizenship way, right?
Mhm.
Most Oklahomans don't recognize that when I care about my local community schools, that when I care about the jails and prisons and the police conduct in my neighborhood, that when I care about mental health investments, when I care about child care investments, all of those pieces, it's not Joe Biden. It's not Congress people or senators, but it is our local and
Mm-hmm.
state elected officials who have power over all of those pieces. I think more than anything else, we need a culture that educates the public about that reality, that it is these officials who you should be spending the majority of your news consumption time focused on. It really is there that you have the most power to affect change and
I
build
agree.
systems that work.
I agree. And too many people only vote every 4 years, you
Right.
know, and there are a lot of elections in those 4 years that they're not voting in. All right, David.
I was just sitting. I don't think I could say anything more than what was just said. I would add that when we're talking about just every 4 years, also primary elections have a huge impact in the state of Oklahoma. Just kind of how our party system's set up, and I think education is key too. When it comes to justice involved folks, there has been legislation that's been introduced by lawmakers that would force the state to send out notices when somebody's right to vote has been restored after a felony conviction. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think on a policy standpoint, we could be doing more there as well. Just educating people and again, letting them know that this is your right, you have it, and you should use it and you can use it.
Well, David, with that in mind, is that something that we as advocates could be working towards, making it something the election board automatically does?
Sure. Again, yeah, there's been legislation that has been introduced that would just send notices, just a simple notice when somebody they have completed their original sentence, as Ms. Thompson has pointed out and educated us all today so well. But just sending out a notification in the mail that says your voting rights have been restored, you're eligible in the next election, register to vote.
Mhm.
And so absolutely, and that's just a small issue that you could call your lawmaker about. That's just one example on a policy end.
I would like to say that I would like there to be some legislature about, as I stated, completed sentence. When you've actually completed all your due diligence to Department of Corrections and they consider your sentence completed, that, I can't remember what state it is, but when I worked with a gentleman by the name of Wayne Thompson, it's called a certificate of completion. And once you complete that sentence, then you would be able to actually go and register and vote because your sentence is complete, rather than having to wait that additional time not to be able to register and vote. So there are plenty of people that complete their sentence inside that could just, once you're ready to be released, just have the opportunity, give them that information that they can register and vote. And that would be great. Yeah, a lot of people, have been a couple of organizations that I know of from Tulsa County over the years that has asked for your voting rights to be restored. And their language was not once you complete your sentence, it's once you leave the prison. So there's been different type, but as far as the way that the system works, I think it would be easier for us to get approval for them to get their rights restored once they actually completed their sentence.
Thank you, Donna.
Can I also add about protecting? I think too, a piece of this is ensuring that we protect our state question process. You know, last session there was multiple bills introduced and some advanced. None of them passed, but it could be next session. But that would make it harder for Oklahomans to pass a state question. And we know that state questions have been instrumental in criminal legal reform in the state of Oklahoma and decreasing our incarceration levels through State Question 780 and 781. And then also we have to pressure lawmakers that when Oklahomans vote on something, and they voted overwhelmingly for State Question 780 and 781, that our lawmakers then follow up and do their obligation as lawmakers to fund those state questions. Right now, State Question 781 still remains unfunded completely. No funds have been sent when the voters of Oklahoma said we want those savings and those investments to be poured back into things that don't look like incarceration. It looks like mental health programming, and it looks like job training, and it looks like employment opportunities in all 77 counties in the state, not just in Tulsa, not just in Oklahoma City, but every county in the state. So I just want to add that we have to protect that state question process because it is so important to everything that we care about.
Right.
I agree completely. And it seems like it was 20 years ago when those two were passed, you know, and they're still just sitting there ineffective.
You know, this has been a great panel discussion. So I applaud you all for not just your conversation today, but your work and your commitment to the work. And I do, because this conversation will live forever, kind of sort of, in the virtual world, and people will be no doubt going back to it. We'll be using snippets of it as well. So I want each of you just to take a minute or so and talk about your organization and what you do and how people might be able to engage with you. Damien, why don't you start?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Angela and Roxanne, both former colleagues of mine at the Oklahoma Policy Institute, that I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and just talk about criminal legal reform, which has definitely become an animating part of my life, and what I hope to be doing with the rest of it, building a justice system that makes sense. If you are interested in getting involved with Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform, we are actually hosting a fairly significant policy reveal event in Oklahoma City on October 6th. I will drop into the comments. I'll drop into the chat, and then maybe you all can share into the comments.
If you drop it into comments, it'll be in the public comment. We'll get it there. Dave can get it there for you.
Awesome. There's a link that I just dropped that they'll be sharing into the comments to our policy reveal event, where we'll be talking about those issues, many of the things that David just mentioned, things like funding the treatment and diversion resources that voters were promised 7 years ago, things like updating Oklahoma's outdated and really harmful sentencing structure and sentencing code, things like ending and eliminating significant millions of dollars of criminal court fines and fees that are attached to our lowest income rural communities and our lowest income communities of color in the urban dense core. Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform is deeply committed to creating a criminal legal system that solves problems. Our current one is producing too much harm. It's producing too many broken families, too many broken communities, and too many folks who are locked up well past any conceivable benefit to public safety. And so that's what OCJR's mission is, and I'm really happy to be part of this amazing coalition. Thank you all.
Thank you, Damien.
Donna?
Yes, I am the director of the Oklahoma Baptist State Convention and the Fairview Baptist Church. I'm Prison Ministry Director. The Oklahoma Baptist State Convention is approximately 265 churches across the state, and 265 plus across Oklahoma. Sorry about that. Across Oklahoma. But we are the largest African American group of churches, and it's important to us that our churches are involved. So with that, my pastor, Dr. John A. Reed Jr., felt like all of those churches in the convention should be doing something to touch the lives of those who had felony convictions and their families in the community. So at this point, we are reaching out to each one of the prisons in the state of Oklahoma. We do as much as we can for the family. It is a wraparound service based upon needs to help people, Angel Tree program to help the children, or if their children are at risk, just getting them connected with any type of resources that we can. We know that not one person can do, or one group can do everything. So we partner with those who are already doing these activities, because we don't feel like we need to reinvent the wheel when there are people like yourselves and others in the audience that are doing a great job. So I couldn't tell you exactly what I do, because it depends on the situation. And so with that said, and at the Fairview Baptist Church, Dr. Reed, he's been in the community forever. So be celebrating his 60th year in 2023. But everybody comes to see Dr. Reed. So trust me, I have a bunch of people that come to me from him. And that way we can just reach out. Even though we are Baptist churches, we do not discriminate against anybody that needs some help. We're definitely trying to help them. And sometimes you have to help the person first before you can start talking about anything. Do the Maslow hierarchy in order to make sure that they're okay first. But in the prison, we're in the prison every week. Every week, one of our churches is in the prison. So I thank all of those people who are a part of that, and everybody in the community, because they have just wrapped their arms around us and helped, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, Donna. And you, David?
Well, you may, if you're watching, you may know this from just the event today, but I work for Oklahoma Policy Institute. We're a nonpartisan, independent policy think and do tank. I always want to add that. So we're focused on ensuring that lawmakers are educated and focused on the issues that matter most for our state. And we have a vision of having a truly equitable Oklahoma. And I think that vision includes a justice system that's focused on what works to, yes, prevent crime and promote genuine public safety, but also respecting the humanity of those who may get caught up in the justice system. It's also a justice system where outcomes are not distorted by things like poverty and race, and where everyone has equal access to justice. And I think part of that is also ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to exercise their democratic rights, including the right to vote, where those, especially those who have been historically marginalized, ensuring that they have a voice in our politics. And also that our elected officials reflect the diversity of the state of Oklahoma. So we do so much more, including our advocacy wing, which is Together Oklahoma, which is putting on this event. So please help us if this inspires you or interests you. Please help us in this fight and in this effort. And thanks again for letting me join this wonderful panel and event today.
Well, I think, Roxanne, you've done a great job along with these panelists.
Yes.
And I actually, right before, when I got off and right before they started, I ran to the kitchen and got a little snack, little popcorn. So I munched as I watched, and I guarantee you are all better than the movies.
Thank you, Ms.
But what
Garrett.
you said is the work is hard, and
Yeah.
there is a lot of work to be done. Oklahoma has made progress, but there's this disconnect. There is clearly this disconnect between what people perceive as being the problem in the justice system that's not that just, and how we can affect change. So we're doing our best to see if we can really make that happen. So, Roxanne, any closing comments? And David, you went away. We know you're still there. You turned your camera
He's still
off.
there.
He just turned his camera off.
I think the main thing, well, not the main thing, but a very big part of is for us to continue to educate.
Right.
And go to the people who need our help and teach them that all is not lost, and we just need to show them what they need to do to get back in the system. We need to show them what they need to do to advocate for what they want. Show them that they can, register to vote. And, once they're a registered voter, that means they have a voice where they can go to the Capitol, they can sit in that legislator's office, and they can talk directly to him. And if they don't like something that's going on, talk to the people that can do something about it. Because their granny or their cousin can't do anything about it. But that elected official at the state capitol, if they know there's people that care, they're going to start listening.
That's right.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Power to the people. Thank you all for what you do. Thanks for hanging on a few minutes. I'm glad we had this little extra time to talk about a very important subject. And I get a plus in too. We, Together Oklahoma, has an affinity group on criminal justice. So if there are advocates out there, togetherok.org, we'll be loading up and restarting our affinity groups here in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So shoot us a text, email, go online, togetheroklahoma.org, sign up, and we'll get information to you. If you go to Damien's organization, sign up, it'll come to us too. So thank you again, Roxanne. Thank you. And Damien, Donna, David, the 3Ds.
Yes.
You guys did a fantastic job. Go enjoy the evening. And
thank you guys for joining today. I really appreciate this. And I enjoyed it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.